March 22, 1945. The outskirts of Bad Honnef, Germany. Rain falls in a relentless, chilling sheet, turning the shattered landscape into a sea of mud. It is a war that has outlasted its seasons, a winter that refuses to yield to spring. For Staff Sergeant Frank Miller of the 9th Infantry Division's 60th Infantry Regiment, the world has shrunk to the perimeter of this makeshift prisoner collection point. His knuckles are white where he grips his M1 Garand, the stock slick with rain. The cold seeps through his wool greatcoat, a damp, persistent ache in his bones. He stands watch on a low rise overlooking a cluster of requisitioned farm buildings and hastily erected wooden huts, their roofs dark with tar paper that glisten under the oppressive gray sky. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth, diesel from a nearby convoy of GMC trucks, and the distant metallic scent of cordite carried on the wind from the front, now just a few miles east. A new contingent of prisoners is being processed, not the hardened soldiers of the Wehrmacht or the fanatical boys of the Hitler Youth he's grown accustomed to seeing. These are women, dozens of them, dressed in the drab gray uniforms of the Flakhelferinnen and other female auxiliaries. They move with a stunned, shuffling gait, their faces pale and smudged with dirt, eyes wide with a mixture of defiance and profound fear. They are young, some barely out of their teens. For Private First Class Jimmy O'Connell, a kid from Ohio who'd only ever seen German women in propaganda posters, the sight is deeply unsettling. He shifts his weight, the mud sucking at his boots. "Sarge," he mutters, his voice low. "What do we even do with them?" Miller doesn't take his eyes off the women. "We guard him, O'Connell, same as the others. Get him behind the wire." The process is slow, awkward. The guards are hesitant, the prisoners resentful. There is no common language here except for barked commands and frightened glances. One of the women, a tall blonde with sharp, intelligent features, seems to be a leader of sorts. Her name is Greta. She speaks in clipped, formal German to the others, trying to maintain a shred of order, a sliver of dignity in the soupy mud. She helps a younger girl, Anya, whose face is a mask of tear-streaked terror. Anya stumbles, and for a moment it looks like she will collapse into the mire. Greta catches her, whispering something that seems to steady her. The American soldiers watch the small drama unfold, a silent, uncomfortable audience. You can feel the tension in the air, the exhaustion of the victors and the despair of the vanquished, all swirling together in the cold German rain. This isn't a glorious battle. This is the messy, grim accounting that comes after the fighting stops. As dusk begins to bleed into the sky, the women are finally herded towards one of the larger wooden huts at the far end of the compound. It's a rough structure built from unseasoned pine, more a shed than a barracks. A corporal unbolts the heavy wooden door, swinging it open to reveal a dark, cavernous interior. The women hesitate at the threshold, peering into the blackness. A sharp command from a lieutenant prods them forward. They file inside, disappearing one by one into the gloom. The bolt slams shut, the sound echoing across the compound with a grim finality. Inside there is nothing but wooden bunks stacked 3 high and a small pot-bellied iron stove in the center of the dirt floor. A guard hands a single bucket of coal and a box of matches through a small barred window. It is the only concession to the biting cold. As the last light fades, Miller and O'Connell begin their watch. The rain lessens to a drizzle. From inside the hut, a faint flickering orange light appears in the small window. Someone has lit the stove. It is a tiny pinprick of warmth against the vast, cold darkness of the night. Inside the hut, the air is thick with the scent of damp wool and fear. 60 women are packed into a space meant for 20 men. The darkness is nearly absolute, broken only by the hungry orange glow of the small iron stove. It devours the rationed coal with a grating hiss, its metal plates groaning as they expand with the heat. For the women huddled on the hard wooden bunks, it is the sole anchor in a terrifying new reality. Greta has managed to secure a lower bunk for Anya, who lies curled into a tight ball, shivering despite the thin blanket pulled up to her chin. Greta sits on the edge, her back ramrod straight, listening to the sounds of the night, the soft weeping of a woman in the far corner, the rhythmic drip of water leaking through the roof, the rough German whispers sharing rumors. They will be shipped to America, to Siberia. They will be shot in the morning. Every fear finds a voice in the dark. "They will not kill us," Greta says, her voice low but firm enough for those nearby to hear. "We are auxiliaries. The Geneva Convention." Her words trail off. Everyone in the hut knows that conventions and rules have become fragile, abstract things in the face of collapsing armies and total war. The stove is the center of their world. It offers a meager warmth that barely reaches the corners of the drafty hut, but it's also a point of contention. The chimney pipe, a rusty, ill-fitting tube of sheet metal, rises straight through the planked ceiling. It rattles and shakes with every gust of wind, occasionally spitting soot and acrid smoke back into the room. A few of the older women mutter that it's unsafe, that the guards were careless to give them a faulty stove. But the cold is a more immediate enemy than any potential danger. They feed it another piece of coal. Outside, the night has grown colder. Sergeant Miller walks the perimeter, his boots making soft, squelching sounds in the mud. He pauses near the women's hut, peering at the sliver of light from its window. He can hear the faint murmur of their voices, a language he doesn't understand but whose tones of anxiety are universal. "Anything?" PFC O'Connell asks, joining him. He holds a steaming tin mug of coffee, a luxury scrounged from the mess tent. "Quiet," Miller replies, accepting the mug. The coffee is bitter and weak, but it's hot. They stand in silence for a moment, two solitary figures in the immense darkness of a conquered nation. The wind picks up, a low moan that sweeps through the tall pines bordering the camp. It carries with it the smell of wood smoke from the hut's chimney. You are there, in that moment, feeling the chill on your skin, tasting the burnt coffee. You see what the soldiers see, the silhouette of the hut against a starless sky. You see what they don't see. High above on the black tar paper roof, the wind whips at the sputtering chimney. With a sudden violent gust, a flurry of orange sparks is ejected from the rusty pipe. Most die out instantly in the damp night air, but one, a little larger than the rest, a glowing red ember, is carried by the wind and lands on a section of the roof where the tar has become dry and brittle. It nestles into a crevice, a tiny menacing pinpoint of light. For a second it seems to be extinguished, then fanned by the relentless wind, it begins to glow brighter. A wisp of smoke, almost invisible in the darkness, curls up from the ember. It is a slow, silent poison, the beginning of a catastrophe that no one yet knows is coming. The fire has been born. The first sign of disaster is not a sound, but a smell. Inside the hut, the familiar scent of coal smoke is slowly overpowered by something sharper, more chemical. It is the acrid odor of melting tar and burning pine. Anya coughs in her sleep, a dry, rasping sound. Greta, who has not allowed herself the luxury of deep slumber, sits bolt upright. Her soldier's training, her time spent scanning the skies for Allied bombers, has honed her senses. She sniffs the air, her head tilted, listening. Above the sound of the wind, she hears a new noise, a soft, continuous crackling, like dry leaves being crushed underfoot. It's coming from above. It's coming from the roof. She scrambles off her bunk, her heart beginning to pound a frantic rhythm against her ribs. "Oh, fucking," she hisses into the darkness. "Wake up. Something is wrong." Her words cut through the murmurs and soft sobs. Women begin to stir, sitting up in their bunks, confused and alarmed. A thin trickle of gray smoke, ghostly in the faint stove light, snakes down from between two ceiling planks. Then another and another. The crackling sound grows louder, more insistent. Panic ignites like a spark in dry tinder. A woman screams. The scream is a signal, releasing a wave of terror that sweeps through the hut. Women tumble from their bunks, scrambling over each other in the dark, their movements clumsy and desperate. Their single-minded goal is the door, the only way out. They surge towards it, a panicked mob pressing against the heavy wood. They beat on it with their fists, their voices rising in a terrifying chorus of shrieks. "Hilfa! Help us! Foya! Foya!" But the thick oak door is barred from the outside. It doesn't budge. Outside, PFC O'Connell is the first to see it. He notices a strange flickering orange glow painting the underside of the low-hanging clouds. He squints, trying to make sense of it, and then his gaze drops to the source. The roof of the women's hut is no longer black. A third of it is consumed by a roiling mass of silent, hungry flames. For a frozen second, he can only stare, his mind struggling to process the image. Then his training kicks in. "Sarge, fire! Hut 6 is on fire!" His shout slices through the night. Staff Sergeant Miller, 50 yards away, is already running, his boots churning through the mud. Other soldiers, roused from their tents by the commotion, follow close behind, grabbing helmets and rifles. The scene that greets them is apocalyptic. The fire, fed by the wind and the flammable tar paper, is spreading with shocking speed. Flames leap 20 feet into the air, a roaring, monstrous beast against the black sky. The sound is deafening now, a deep, guttural roar, mixed with the high-pitched, desperate screams of the women trapped inside. The heat is a physical blow, pushing the soldiers back. They can feel it on their faces from 100 feet away. Smoke, thick and black, billows into the sky, choking the air. The screams from within the hut are growing weaker, more ragged, replaced by the terrifying sounds of hoarse coughing and gagging. The wooden walls of the hut begin to glow from within, the gaps between the planks outlining the inferno. The entire structure is being consumed. Greta, inside, has pulled Anya and a few other women to the floor, away from the door where the crush is most dangerous. The air is a toxic soup. It burns the throat, stings the eyes. Visibility is zero. The heat is unbearable, pressing down from the ceiling, radiating from the walls. Then comes a new sound, a deep, groaning crack from above. The main roof beam, charred and weakened, is beginning to give way. The ceiling sags. Time has run out. They are about to be burned alive or crushed to death.
The compound descends into organized chaos. A lieutenant is shouting orders, but his voice is nearly lost in the roar of the inferno. Soldiers form a frantic bucket brigade from a nearby well, but it's a pitifully inadequate response. The small splashes of water they manage to throw against the base of the hut evaporate instantly with an angry hiss, doing nothing to slow the fire's relentless advance. The entire front of the building, where the main door is located, is now an impenetrable wall of flame. The wood groans and pops, spitting embers like cannon fire. The screams from inside have become a continuous, desperate wail, a sound of pure, primal terror that chills the blood of even the most hardened combat veterans. Staff Sergeant Miller skids to a halt, the intense heat forcing him to shield his face. He sees the futility of the buckets. He sees the structure beginning to buckle. He knows they have seconds, not minutes. Forget the fire. Get him out. Miller's voice cuts through the noise, a sergeant's command honed by months of battle. The back wall. Get to the back wall. He grabs O'Connell and another soldier, a burly corporal named Diaz, and they sprint around the side of the building, staying clear of the collapsing eaves. The back of the hut is not yet fully engulfed, but thick, oily smoke pours from every joint and crack in the wood. The heat is staggering. There is no door here, only a solid wall of thick pine planks. Axe! Anybody got an axe? Miller bellows. A soldier runs up from the tool shed, thrusting a heavy felling axe into his hands. Without a moment's hesitation, Miller swings. The blade bites deep into the wood with a solid thud. He wrenches it free and swings again. Splinters fly. Diaz and O'Connell join in, using the steel butts of their M1 Garands as battering rams, slamming them again and again into the wall. Thump, crack, thump. The impacts are brutal, jarring their shoulders with every blow. Inside, the world has become a living hell. The women are no longer screaming. They don't have the air. They are on the floor, a heap of humanity, huddled in the center of the room, as far as possible from the burning walls. Smoke has filled the space from the sagging ceiling down to a foot above the dirt floor. It is a thick, choking blanket that makes every breath a searing agony. Greta holds Anya's head in her lap, trying to shield the younger girl's face with her own body. Anya is no longer conscious. Greta can feel the terror that paralyzes the others. In the face of certain death, their bodies have simply shut down. They are frozen, waiting for the end. It's a primal response to an overwhelming threat, a surrender of the conscious mind. Through the roaring and the crackling, Greta hears a new sound, a rhythmic, splintering banging from the wall behind her. Hope, a feeling she thought had been extinguished, flickers weakly in her chest. She tries to call out, but only a dry, rasping croak escapes her throat. The soldiers work with a desperate, furious energy. Sweat pours down their faces, mixing with the soot and ash that rains down on them. Their lungs burn from the smoke they inhale with every gasp. Miller's arms ache, his muscles screaming in protest, but he keeps swinging the axe, his grunts of effort punctuating the rhythm of the destruction. Harder, he roars, put your backs into it. O'Connell, his face a mask of grim determination, slams his rifle butt into a section already weakened by the axe. There's a loud crack, and a single plank splinters inward. A rush of superheated, black smoke billows out, forcing them back. But they see an opening. They redouble their efforts, focusing on the new weakness. The wood shrieks in protest. And then, with a final shuddering crash, a 3-foot section of the wall gives way, collapsing inward. A dark, rectangular hole opens into the heart of the inferno, a doorway into oblivion. For a split second, everyone freezes, staring into the impenetrable, smoke-filled blackness beyond. There is no time for hesitation. Staff Sergeant Miller rips a strip of cloth from his sleeve, dunks it in a muddy puddle, and ties it over his nose and mouth. "O'Connell, Diaz, with me," he yells. "The rest of you pull him out as we pass him through." He takes a deep breath of the cold night air and plunges through the splintered opening into the suffocating heat and blackness. The change is instantaneous and brutal. The air is fire, searing his lungs. The darkness is total, a physical presence pressing in from all sides. He drops to his hands and knees, where the smoke is marginally thinner. He is blind.
navigating by sound and touch alone. He can hear faint, desperate gasps and whimpering somewhere to his left. He crawls towards the sound, his hands sweeping across the dirt floor, feeling for bodies. O'Connell and Diaz are right behind him. The young private gags, his eyes streaming, every instinct screaming at him to retreat back into the clean air. But he follows the sound of Miller's crawling, pushing deeper into the smoke. Their mission is no longer about friend or foe. It has been stripped down to its most elemental form, one human being trying to save another. Miller's hand brushes against a wool sleeve. He grabs it and pulls. There is resistance, then a body moves. It's a woman, limp and unresponsive. "Got one," he shouts, his voice muffled by the cloth. He begins to drag her back towards the faint rectangle of gray that marks the hole in the wall. Hands reach in from the outside, grabbing the woman and pulling her clear. One out. Back in the hut, Diaz finds the main cluster of women. They are huddled together, barely conscious, their bodies locked in a state of shock. He and O'Connell don't try to reason with them. They simply grab them, shouting in English, "Come on, let's go, move!" They pull, push, and half-carry the disoriented women towards the opening, feeding them one by one into the waiting arms of the soldiers outside. The process is a desperate, chaotic relay. The heat intensifies as more of the ceiling begins to burn, raining down hot embers. A piece of burning timber crashes to the floor just feet from O'Connell, showering him with sparks. He ignores it, grabbing another woman and shoving her towards the hole. Out in the night, the rescued prisoners collapse onto the muddy ground, their bodies racked with violent coughing fits as their lungs expel the toxic smoke. They lie there, gasping in the cold, wet air, their faces black with soot, their eyes wide with the horror they have just escaped. Miller goes back in. He's lost count. Are they all out? He sweeps the area near where he found the first woman, his hand sweeping across the floor. Nothing. He crawls deeper, towards the center of the hut. The main roof beam above him lets out a final, agonizing groan. He knows it's about to go. His hand finds a small body, curled up and still. It's Anya. She's not moving. He doesn't know if she's alive or dead. There's no time to check. He gets his shoulder under her, lifts her in a fireman's carry, and staggers to his feet. He can feel the structure of the hut shifting around him. He lunges for the hole, a desperate, stumbling run through the blinding smoke. He bursts out into the night air just as the entire roof caves in with a deafening roar, sending a massive geyser of flames and sparks soaring into the sky. Miller falls to his knees, dropping Anya gently onto the ground before collapsing beside her, gasping for breath. The immediate danger is over. The hut is a funeral pyre, burning itself to nothing. In the eerie silence that follows the collapse, there is only the sound of the fire and the ragged breathing of the survivors. An American medic kneels beside Anya, checking for a pulse. He finds one. Around them, the war is forgotten. There are no Americans, no Germans. There are only the rescuers and the rescued, bound together by the smoke, the fire, and the fragile, tenacious miracle of being alive.